Thomas, go ahead.
Dave, a concept that has almost is like a lost art to me, and I attribute it to the skill development coaches. When we work with young kids, it's all about working individually with the puck. So we have a lot of skilled individuals now, individual players, but we don't have players who can support the puck offensively. The art of timing, arriving on time, being an option more than once. And I quote Dave King and George Kingston and Wally Kozak, being an option more than once, has gotten lost. And it's one of our priorities now in development. With the Maple Leafs, we find young players coming in, a lot of individual skill, but not being able to put the skill in the context of the game.
Yes.
And second player, third player, fourth player of the puck, the proper behavior, proper spacing, timing, arriving at the right time, leaving the good ice in front of you or beside you, wherever you want to have it. If you can elaborate on it a little bit, I think female game, same thing, same experience.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy will probably agree. Let's talk about offensively about the players away from the puck.
Okay, well, first of all, I would say I liked your comments about skill. We have a lot of skill coaches. I read from a soccer. I read a soccer book back a few years ago, and the guy he differentiated. He talked about it was something in Holland. I forget the fellow's name, and he was a Dutch coach, and he said there's a difference between skill and technique. He said we have technique coaches that teach the techniques of handling the ball, dribbling, deking, all those things. But we need somebody that can teach it. You have to learn it, but be able to apply it to the game, and then it becomes a skill. It's a technique. We have technique coaches. They're not skill coaches. They teach techniques. When they start to build it into the context of playing the game, it does become a skill, because it's not a skill if it can't be used in the game. So I like that. I thought it was a very good statement by that soccer coach. I guess for me, offensive hockey, it's really simple. It's a simple game. It's first to the puck, strong on the puck, support the puck, smart with the puck. So when I talk to coaches, those are the four things I always talk about. But it's support the puck is a very interesting concept. Whether we're talking now about the neutral zone or the offensive zone or the defensive zone, we always talked about closest man, provide close and quick support. And then the term got changed to second man quick support. And second man quick support, in my opinion, is the most critical concept in offensive hockey, because it gives you possession. And once you have possession, then you can do some things. So to me, for example, if you look at a forecheck, we get the puck behind the D. Our first man is there to pressure the man getting the puck. We stop the puck, or semi-stop the puck for a second. If our second man quick can beat their second man quick, we win the puck. And so now we've gone from forecheck to offensive zone play. So that second man quick links forechecking to offensive zone play a lot of times in a game. Defensively, it's the same thing. The play comes into our zone. If our closest man gets there and stops or semi-stops the puck, if our second man quick beats their second man quick, we get the puck, Thomas. So we're going from D-zone coverage to breakout, from breakout to rush. If we save our ice, time our breaks into open space, support the puck, but don't crowd the puck carrier, we're on our way. So second man quick support is for the puck is really, really the critical concept, because it seems to link everything together. The other part of it, though, is you're right. Timing is such an important aspect. When I talk to players about support, I always say, like, how much separation does he have? Because if he has separation, don't get too close. Let's think about spacing here. But if he's under pressure, we got to get closer. So it's how much checking pressure he's under that dictates to you how close you have to be to him. Sometimes spread, leave him, create more space for him. So those are the kind of things we have to really work on. And that's why I think it goes back to working with young players in small area drills or small area scrimmages. I think these are the concepts you can start to work on a little bit. Like 3-on-3 hockey is a most amazing teaching situation. When I was coaching with the national team, that was our D zone coverage. Most of it was on 3. Oh, we played that way, 3-on-3 cross ice. So you can do a lot of things with small ice work that I think teaches some of those concepts. Some players will never get it because for some reason, and many times it's because they skate too well, they overskate, they get in the way, they leave too early, they're not available. So it's funny, I found some of the best players aren't the fastest. It's because they aren't fast. They learn to save their ice. They learn to time themselves into open ice. They learn about the importance of support, and they know they need it when they've got the puck. So, these are all concepts that are very interesting. And I think one of the parts of the game, Thomas, I talk a lot with my guys is the next play. Moving down getting out of your zone, moving down the ice, and the object of the game is to score. And scoring is, can we make play? Play depends often on support, whether it's post support or it's stretching support that spreads things out. Those are the kind of things we have to work on with young players. And I've always felt you practice and drills to do that. You can play cross ice or small area hockey, but that's where the help is video. I've really found with young players a little video to show them themselves. And okay, here's what were you thinking? What did you do? What else could you have done besides that? That to me is where they learn the game. And so the game should become the teacher, ideally. But next play is the third man support. If A is passing to B, C's got to be thinking about moving for B. And then once A moves the puck to B, C is supporting, A's got to get back in action again. So that third man support idea is really important. And again, I found video has always been very helpful to me to get kids to think about that without getting too complex. You still got to do all this with young players in a simple way, as simple as you possibly can. And that's where the art of coaching becomes really critical, because that's the best teachers are the guys that can teach it the simplest.
Dave, I just wanted to get Tom involved here because Tom has worked with Johanny Wilson, who you know, and he had 4 principles of play, which allow you to think about the game, especially the transition game, defense or offense. When I was writing the female curriculum back in late 2007 to 10, I came up with a statement about playing defense is knowing when and how to pressure and when and how to contain.
Yeah.
And offense is really creating time and space and playing proactively by your movements, your speed, your deception. But defensive skating and playing is reactive. It's according to what you see, and the idea of slowing up relative to situations is critical. Now, Tom, could you mention the 4 points that you've had in your book on the thinking principles? It's quite simple, and I think it's so simple, in fact, we may have forgotten about the importance of simplicity.
Tell you the truth, Wally, can't think exactly about what you're asking here.
Well, in his book, he had the book I gave out is 4 principles of having the puck, not having the puck having the puck on offense, not having it on defense.
Well, you mean the 4 playing principles?
Yeah,
4
they're the
game
4
playing roles.
Yeah.
4 roles, not principles. Roles.
4 roles, yeah. Yeah, well, on offense, you've got to work on the skills when you have the puck. and then supporting the puck like Dave was just talking about, the second, third, fourth, fifth player. And on defense, the closest player checking the puck carrier, you have all those skills to concentrate on, and then covering away from the puck, whether it's man-on-man or zone. And that's basically what the whole how you organize, how you coach, and how the game really is. And then there are three situations you're in. You're either on offense or you're on defense. And one thing that a lot of coaches don't coach very much is about 30% of the game, about 18 minutes every game, the puck is loose. So, you have all those principles of how you read the play when the puck is loose. And some guys anticipate, some guys play on the offensive side, right? And some teams are always the defensive, and the real great players, they kind of recognize what's going to happen next. And you get the puck there available because they've read that you're going to get the puck, so those are the basic principles that Yuso talked about.
Thomas, any other thoughts?
You spoke about the NHL, Dave. Right now, basically, we have 10 players on the strong side, and it's more of a chip, tip, deflection, lobbing out, puck to space, not puck to tape, kind of a hockey game. Where do you see will be the next? Where is the game going, in your opinion? Or like you said, like if somebody's gonna get creative, how are they gonna get creative? What do you think the game needs more?
Well, like the game is interesting. 80% of the game, or more than 80% of the game now, is played in the end zones, and a lot of the change in the game, the way we're playing it now, is because of the rule changes. Back in 1999, 2000, they started to introduce rule changes to the game, and one of them was to make the end zones both 4 feet deeper and make the zone 8 feet reduced. And so suddenly it became paramount to get through that middle zone. It was like it was a pain in the ass. Just get through it. So the long indirect pass, chip it behind. No red line did help a little bit to make the zone a bit more useful. But, when they make rule changes like that, they have to understand the coaches will adapt. Coaches will adapt, and that's exactly what's happened. I mean, you see the long cycles now in the offensive zone. Sometimes you'll see a cycle for a minute and a half, sometimes 2 minutes in a zone, and the other team just plays, protect the house, stay inside, and then shot blocking became paramount. Because of the bigger zones, everybody said the only thing we can do then is get in shot lanes. So now everybody, when I coached in the NHL, I first started there were a few shot blockers. We had Chris Dahlquist, we had Frantisek Musil. They were shot blockers. But you knew you had 1 or 2 shot blockers. Now everybody blocks shots. It's because of the tactics we're playing. When you play these defensive zone coverage where you fall back and protect and block shots, and then you counterattack off the shot block. You got to get to the puck, capture the puck, and then you got to get going. So puck retrievals become important. But it's really interesting. I had a talk once, maybe a year and a half ago, with Scotty Bowman, and we were talking about the game today. And Scotty said he didn't like the game today because the rules he thought were restrictive. He thought changing the dimensions of the ice was not a good idea. He had no problem with no red line, but he even favored a little bit having the red line back. So no matter what we do, you'll adjust your tactics to compensate and react to it and find a way to win. We all do. That's what coaches do. We always screw up the game. Do you notice that? Coaches do that. We find ways to get in the way. But anyway, get off that topic. I've always felt if they really want to, when the referee started to apply the rule book, that's when the game got faster. Yes, the players are more fit now, Thomas, than ever before. And they skate. There's more classic skaters than ever before. But when you have no red line, you have no interference, you have one touch passing, you have guys with speed, the game is going to be faster. And that's why the game is faster. And there's a rush to get through the middle zone. That's why the game gets faster. Long indirect passes that can be chipped. That's what we want to do because it keeps us fast. So there's a real emphasis on playing fast. And that's good. I understand that because speed, if you make a mistake, speed it's a big factor. So if somebody makes a wrong read or the wrong technique, something happens. If you're fast, you're going to get a good scoring chance. So, the game has changed a great deal. I have always felt that I don't mind the no red line. I wouldn't mind seeing the end zones getting back to where they were because that allows defensive zone coverage to be quicker. Offensively, to counteract that, you're going to have to be more direct at times, get maybe not a wide open shot lane, but you're going to have to get pucks to the net. And when the puck gets to the net, fans get in their seats and they get anxious because that's good. So we've got to think it's entertainment. So I'm not sure we shouldn't go back to keep a no red line, but make the neutral zone bigger. Now
that would also mean that the point shots would be more dangerous.
Yes.
We would be closer to the net, which we want to with our defensemen now. The most successful D-men in the NHL in terms of points and goals, they don't shoot from the blue line. They are trying to get to the top of the circles.
That's right. And really, how many one-time shots from the blue line do you see anymore? When I had Al McInnes, we'd get it across the top of him and for the one time. And that was a big part of our offensive zone play because we knew if he had even a close to a shot lane, he was going to blast it. And so we were always, if he gets going to the looking for pucks, we're going to quick putbacks, we're going to score on the rebound or the loose puck. So yeah, it's interesting. I think that the game is becoming quite similar. And I don't know, when I watch these long cycles in the offensive zone where it's possession, 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 I don't know. And it's just interesting for you. I watched the KHL game about a month ago, and I saw the longest in the history of hockey in one zone. I saw over 5.5 minutes, one team in their zone, and they couldn't get it out, and the other team didn't score. I couldn't believe it. I'm watching thinking, it's got to get out pretty soon. And they didn't. They went over 5.5 minutes in the offensive zone. And they bumped the puck. They moved. They slid a forward high, played 3-on-2. But the other team got in shot lanes. The goalie was good. No one got caught out of position. They just contained the inside of the ice. And it wasn't fun to watch. But it was interesting because it went 5.5 minutes. 5.5 minutes. God, that was unbelievable. Like, that could happen in the game. So, I like the game to be a little more vertical. And that's why I wish the zones were smaller so there'd be a shot, puck retrieval, boom, you got to defend. You've gone from attack to defense real quick. I think that transition game is still the most exciting part of our game. And maybe the rules have taken some of that away because teams are so smart now. We all have numbers back. We all have layers to our defense. It's just the way it is. Positioning has never been better. So that it's not easy to score.
I think the best line in hockey 2 years ago was the Flames line of Tkachuk and Gaudreau and Lindholm, but they played differently than everybody else. Tkachuk was on the off wing there, he on the right side, and they did they passed to him, and then he fired it all the way across, and Gaudreau, instead of slashing it across, but right down the boards. And he pick up that power. He could pick up any kind of a pass, and they were the best line in the NHL there 2 years ago. But they played differently than everybody else. So, just to your point of everybody overloading one side, they didn't do that. But they were really successful.
I was watching a game the other day. It's interesting. This is happening a lot in the KHL, and I do consult with a team, Lokomotiv Yaroslavl, and it's interesting. Quite common in their game now is a team will break out, and a lot of teams over there now play a 1-1-3. So they lock the left side with the forward, the one D plays in the middle, the other D shifts to the right side, and the two lead forwards are kind of in an eye, pressure, recover, replace, standard 1-1-3. And a lot of teams now will break out, and they'll get across their own blue line, and then they slap the puck all the way down the ice. They're using the touch puck icing to their advantage. And they've found these spots on the boards where the puck will come out, and they just get out and they just whack it off a slap shot off the far boards. The goalie can't play it. And these rebounds come out, and of course, you're 3 back. They got to turn, and they're playing tight gap, which is what you want and what you're coaching to do. But they got to get on their horse because these guys are coming full speed, and the non-shooters are accelerating, and they're moving, and they'll beat the D to that puck. It's interesting tactics. So the game, it's interesting. There's always people finding ways. And so to answer your question, Thomas, about, I think that to get more use of the width of the ice, the net front D is very important, and that was a good one. I still think a lot of it's going to be in the hands of the defenseman because they have to do more misdirection. The free defenseman's got to really work for his partner. He just can't cruise back. He's got to hurry back. He's got to make sure he creates something for his partner cross ice. And
Dave, I want to stay on the D-man. Sorry to jump in there because, of course, you're creating new thoughts here. I do find with a lot of teams still that the D-to-D support is sometimes too widespread. So if we do go D-to-D, we end up on the boards with the puck.
Yeah.
I would like to see D-man playing closer together. So when I get the puck D-to-D, now I am at the furthest on the dot line and not by the boards. And if I'm on the dot line, I can go back to the middle. I can go off the boards. I find sometimes the distance between D-man offensively supporting each other way too far.
Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of defensemen, when they get the D-to-D pass, you only play, you can throw it back inside, but you better be careful because you're in the wide ice and your pass is in the inside ice. So what you do is you chip it long off, indirect off the boards to a post-up guy, and they get the puck deep. To me, the free defenseman's always got to work from the middle of the ice. If my partner's retrieving a puck, outside the dots on his side, I want to be in the middle. So when we go to D, I can buy time. I have ice to retreat if I have to. I have ice to pivot from backward to forward and start to advance the puck. But I've got position and where I've got ice in front of me. And so your point's a good point. But that free defenseman now, I really think that's where it's the net front D breakout option's a good one. Really good option. But we have to do more earlier than that if we can. Can we go over D to D? Can we go over D to D and back to the first D? It all depends about how much separation you have. But if you have enough separation, give misdirection. If they're right in your hip pocket, you don't have a lot of choices. I think sometime too, Thomas, if we're talking about the logic of this, sometime hockey may start to do what soccer has done, where the goalie starts the attack. If you watch the top European soccer teams,
yes,
go back to the goalie and he can't use his hands. If you pass it back to the goalie, he's got to use his feet. And there is a depth now as a forward with the ball. And they make the good quick pass and boom, that transition, it's away from numbers. It's into some open space. Yes, they have some faux pas and they do give up some goals. But we may see our goalies become, I think even now in the second period, our goalies should be more active than they are at playing.
So this is going back to when you were coaching and I was watching a pregame skate of the Detroit Red Wings playing you that night. And you guys were in the 1-2-2 wedge. You used to call it wedge forecheck.
Yeah.
And they did D-man to the strong side winger and strong side winger back to the goalie.
Yeah.
They were practicing it. I don't know if they did it in the game.
Yeah.
But just to your point, this is 30 years ago now. But I think it was Scotty Bowman actually coaching back then in '94, if I'm not mistaken, the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
But when you mentioned the goalie, I've seen it once being done.
I think in the futuristic part of our game, the goalies are going to be more active. And you hear rumors about the NHL starting to change, and maybe the first and third periods will be long, and the second period will be your close change. If they do that, that's another way to affect the attacking part and the offensive part of our game, Thomas, is to have the first and third periods long changes. And because if that happens, the goalie should be taught courage to get out and when it's appropriate. And I don't know why. Want to go there, he gets the puck. It's You know, we have this trapezoid which contains the goalie a little bit. I think in the game today, with the amount of speed we have, I wouldn't mind seeing the goalie have to take a little bit of risk because it might generate some more offense.
Hey, what do you think of that as a goalie?
It's interesting. If anybody watched the rivalry series game last night, Henry Desbiens likes to play the puck a lot, but I feel like is maybe not as strong as she needs to be in that situation. So it bit them in the butt one time when Jocelyn Larocque was on the flank but not ready for the pass. And it would have been an easy breakout, but got picked off and then the Americans scored. So I love it. I think that it needs to be a conversation. We were talking about what sort of the next iterations of hockey could be. And I think the conversation between the goalie and the players, including a 6-person team rather than a 5-person team, I think is very intriguing. So the goalie starting the breakout on a rebound, for instance, and goalies now are being taught how to rebound so that you're rebounding in the right position so that you are starting the breakout versus down into the corners, which is a very different mindset than what we went through. So I think looping everybody in, because goalies are starting to think this way, but I don't know that coaches necessarily are. So yeah, I think people are ready for it. It just needs to be a conversation between the entire staff.
It's interesting. If you look at the goalies' equipment now, you know, the goalie skates they have now, they're more mobile than ever before because of the skate that they've adapted. Whereas the old days with the flat blade and the big heavy skates, you know, goalies didn't move well. Now they skate so well that I think we're going to find down the road somewhere, we're going to get the goalies more involved in starting attacks when it's appropriate. And we may even find D-men at times throwing it back to the goalie so the D can both flare wide. You got to trust your goalie. And all of a sudden, it happens now on some breakouts where the goalie stops the puck behind the net, he keeps it, and both D release. But we may find more of that in front of the goalie, where the D release to the hash marks, for example, and the goalie plays the puck. The center comes back, and now you have four people involved in the breakout, not the normal 3. Normally, we have 2 defensemen and a center working low. This way, with a goalie, you'd have 4 back there. Center coming low, close. The wingers D releasing to the hash marks, and the goalie playing the puck. It's going to be interesting to see where, I don't know. I'm always off base.
I just wanted to chime in here. When I was helping Tom with the U18 female team, we developed a breakout progression that began with each goalie on each side of the net making the breakout passes to the low winger, just so they would come into the corner to the goal line depth, face the puck, and do an ego pivot, target with one hand, and away they go. And then when we taught center timing and whatnot, but the goalie, Tom's goalie in that year, I remember winning the provincial championship. Pucks would be dumped in, they retrieved it. The forwards automatically set up higher when there was space. Yeah. And the puck was moved to them because we practiced that. Yeah. They get the puck. First thought is, back in your day, Sam, we said, make sure you exaggerate what you're doing. You're going to pass. Don't be fidgeting about maybe I will, maybe I won't. So it's that body language which allows the players to think support. And what Tom's team did there was exactly that. The goalie is the first pass, and you can gain a lot of space. That winger doesn't have to come down the goal line. He might be able to stop at the blue line.
But also the next level too, Wally, is not being so readable with your pass. So now goalies being deceptive with their pass. Wally, the clinic I saw you at in Calgary, the high performance goalie clinic that I went to, France Jean, I think is this, the goalie coach for Tampa Bay, was talking about Vasilevsky and that they work continuously on him making the first save and putting it into open space so that his players can sort of circle on it, but to not be readable and be deceptive, just like any other player on the ice. And he does it really well. But also being he said, the king of the 5-foot pass. Like, you don't have to make the 30-foot pass. You have to make a really great 5-foot pass. And your players you have to practice it like anything else, I guess. Anyways, I just usurped this whole call and made it all about goalies. So we can go back to all other things. That's enough goalie stuff now.
Dave, I have a question about coaching, on bench management.
Yep.
And first of all, were the Russians quite easy to get your matchups in? Did they care about certain matchups, or were you able to dictate even when you played, even when you were not the home team, were you able to dictate what players you're gonna get on the ice against Makarov, Larionov, Krutov, and those guys?
Yes, it was very easy to get the matchup, Thomas. They never. I'm making this comment and don't want to be not complimentary to our team, but very few of our players could make their team. So they didn't care who played out against who because they knew they were better. So yeah, we could get our matchups, and that was a big help to us to always have the right matchups. And then besides that, we would play lines differently. Like when we played Makarov, Larionov, and Makarov, we played the game subtly, really, like our forechecking game was such that we were never going to get two players trapped by one pass against the Makarov line. We would designate somebody to be always the high forward, and we would designate this guy. You are the high forward when you play against this line. You are, unless we have the puck, you're not going down there below the top of the circles. You're going to always respect the fact that they're a quick transition group. We want minimum 3 back. So you could get your matchup. Yep.
What's your attitude on matchups, and how did it evolve being a pro coach with the Flames and then assistant coach? What is your experience? Would you match up the whole 5? Would you match up only D pairings? Would you match up the forward line? I mean, there's so many ways of matching up. But what is your experience? And looking back at it now, would you change anything?
Well, I think matchups, I would first of all say, and I think everybody here knows that, it's very frustrating for your team at times, matchups, because a smart coach on the other side will double shift his top guys. And so somebody's getting left out on your team, and they're not happy about that. And I always found 5-on-5 matchups were very, very frustrating to a lot of our players that wanted their ice time. They wanted rhythm to their game. And to be good, they had to have rhythm to their game. And so I've always, our thoughts were, Thomas, we would do it with our defensemen. If we couldn't get the forward, ideally, against the Makarov line, we wanted to get the full 5. But that was the only line we needed the full 5. And then later on, when the Russians became a little more generic with their attack and all 4 lines were kind of the same, we would go with defense matching up against what we thought were the top lines. And so that's the way we did it. And by doing that, you're kind of ticking off 4 other defensemen possibly, but you're not ticking off 9 forwards. So it was strictly mathematics, and it was still effective. That's what we tried to do. We tried to, you have to match up against some of the top people because, and now it's interesting because now a lot of teams match up offense against offense, and some teams match up defense against offense. So there's various ways to do it. You can do it tactically. Those are decisions a coach has to make. But I've always been a believer in trying to match up, mainly because when I coached the national team, like I said, we had mismatches. We knew that were there, and we had to make sure we kind of camouflage that. In the NHL, I still found some nights we could go offense against offense. Some nights it was no way. We had to go offense against defense against offense.
Would you speak with your players about it before the game? Would they know about it? Would you try that they understand, like we talked about understanding? Would you get the buy-in from them?
Yeah, we would talk to our team always before the game about what the matchup was going to be. and then how we were going to change. You had to make sure that your changes were crisp and smart, that the defenseman, for example, bench side D would change first. The D coming on would go to the wide side of the ice. The other guy had to hold the ice until he got there, but you had to make sure you had smart line changes positionally so you were always sound. Because every time you match up, there is a moment when you are sometimes in difficulty. If guys start to make the change before too soon and they're getting to a puck, you can suddenly get caught with that long transition play. And so you had to be really alert. It took practice to do it, and we would do that. But I always was kind of a believer in trying to make sure we were sound on the ice. And then if we got caught in a mismatch, we always told our goalie, cover. If it's even close, cover the puck. We'll take the face off. Cover the puck. Play the off the glass and out game if we have to. If you haven't got a good play defenseman, it's up and out. So we had ways to get caught in a mismatch and still survive. The guys understood that. And for the most part, the guys understood. Hey, they had respect for the opposition and they knew they were good. In the NHL, it's always more difficult because the NHL players, they don't want to play reactive. They want to play proactive. Like if you coach guys like Theron Fleury, Gary Roberts with the Flames, they never wanted to know what the other team was doing. We're going to play our game against them. And they did. And they did it well. So as a coach, you know that Joel Otto, Paul Ranheim, they want to hear from you. They want to know all about that team because they're more of that. They want to have the comfort of preparation. Gary Roberts and Theron Fleury we'll smack those guys around. We'll go so damn hard they won't be able to stay with us. And that was their strategy. And I liked it. So I learned to adapt to that too because, hey, some guys just don't want to. They don't care how good they are. It's how good we are.
I'm not going to say what team it was, but with one of the NHL teams I was working with, the players always hated when we had a pregame meeting and the coach would show the logo of the other team. And they were like, I don't want to be looking at somebody else's logo here. Like, they were already getting upset.
Yeah.
Watching the other team. It's the nature of the top athlete that they want to be the dominant one, in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's they're. I found most players, not most players, some players didn't want any pregame meetings. They didn't feel they were needed. A lot of players like to know, and the art of coaching is keeping those meetings short, the message succinct, and don't forget to talk about your own team, how good we are. Don't just talk. I was guilty at times because of the coaching against the Russians so much. I got always prepared for the other team, and sometimes I forgot about our team.
Dave, what is your experience today with players? Everybody has their own strength coach. Everyone has their own skills coach. Everyone has their own psychologist. Everybody is on social media. Now they have coaching staff of 6 coaches. There's so much information coming down to that one player. What is your experience with that? How to sort it out? I just find a lot of the players I work with, my biggest job is to find out whether he even wants the information or not. If my information, if I'm not duplicating or saying the same thing for the 3rd or 4th or 5th time. So a lot of wisdom and patience is required in my job because there's so much information available. And plus, players have their own private coaches that they are still in touch with during the season. What is your experience with that, and what do you think about that?
Well, I know now that coaching is much more difficult than it was back when I was a head coach in the NHL. At one time, you had agents were really the only, and maybe parents to a little bit of the extent, but not at our level of hockey would they be much of a factor. But the wives sometimes wanted to coach too, as well. So we've got to remember that. But it's difficult. It just indicates to me.
And maybe they were the best coaches, right? That's where you were going with that.
Yeah. It's the difficulty in the coaching now. It's so difficult because you have so much information about the game. Between periods, you have your printouts coming on possession and shot charts. And I mean, you've got tons of stuff to look at with the analytics. You've got 4 other coaches on your staff that want to talk to you. On the off days, you got the nutritionist, you got the sports psych, you've got I mean, it's unbelievable. So now the coaching is very, very complicated and very, very difficult. And I think one of the things for coaches is to park what you got to keep yourself charged up, energized. Too much information can de-energize you. You just get overloaded with too many opinions, too many cooks in the kitchen. So it's really important to have the information. What do you feel is important to you? Prioritize that. Some of the other stuff, you may not even read it in terms of the analytics, because there's some that's very valuable, but there's some that's just too much information. To me, I was always, it's interesting with the Coyotes. I told this story the last time I was on. I remember we got to the point where between periods, the head coach would dash into his office, get all the analytics. We'd never get time to talk. And I remember going to him, because I was the old guy on the staff, saying, hey, whoa, we should, we still got to use our instincts a little bit. We still have guys with good opinions. We see the game. I mean, yeah, I know the analytics are good there, but, can we not find a couple minutes to talk before we go and talk to the players? And so I think you got to be really careful here. There's a lot of influences on the player, which make it very difficult for the coach, Thomas. And I don't know if there's going to be a solution other than your ability to prioritize what is important to you. Sit down with the player, and if you think it's getting too complicated, you got to talk to the player, and you got to say, look, I don't think we're communicating really well. Let's talk it out here. You've got some opinions. Who are you getting them from? What do you think of their credibility, your credibility? I mean, you've got to, all you can do, and the most important thing to do is get good people.
Yes.
Get good people, because good people still see a bigger picture, and they still tend to understand they are a puzzle. They're not the whole puzzle. And
yes.
But boy, it's complicated, Thomas. I haven't got a good answer for you because I don't know. That's a really complicated topic. I've got a son who coaches in Major Junior now with Moose Jaw, and he tells me, a lot of things that happen with his players in terms of all the information they're getting from so many people. And they have skills coaches, they have everything, and they're junior players, and these are people that are not part of your staff, and they might not agree with the way you're playing, and so they plant ideas sometimes that are counterproductive. And
yes,
as a coach, you have to know that it's going on. You just got to deal with it, and that's the most important thing you can do in coaching today. Is you and your staff is to create a good environment.
yes,
because if it's a positive environment, I think a lot of guys start to buy in, start to understand a bit better where things are going, where they fit in. But that's the most important thing about coaching today is the environment you create. You have to know the game, but the best results come from the best environment.
yes. Thank you, Dave. It's a complicated, not easy question. It's not easy.
No.
I'd just like to interject here. It's an art, and one of my friends has written a book, Ray Paras, and he refers to the art of coaching as doing the right stuff, the right amount, the right time. And he added to that the right way. And with all this information going on, it can be distractive. At getting people to be on the same page as an organization within the organization is important. Yeah. Most important. And then how you deal with the outside. I think by building a relationship with your players of trust and respect and asking them more than telling them and seeing what their process is. I really believe that coaching has changed from being coach direction to coach attentiveness and being able to engage his players or her players by asking questions at the right time. And, as simple as it may seem, I'm doing HP evaluations, and I want the coaches to ask each other 2 questions. What did we do well? What do we need to do better? And then ask the players the same questions.
Yeah.
And the head coach filters that to, okay, here's what we want to do moving forward. But by our era of coaching, it was go in and tell them everything you thought they needed to know, and they probably know much more than we do from our vantage points. And
Yeah.
it's
You
sort
know
of
what?
like that
You're correct.
Janelle era and that old school era of my way, the highway, north-south hockey.
Yeah.
The game's changed so much that the players, I think, they're keeping up with it because they're on the ice and they're living it, and they're getting more skill work than I could ever give them or we could ever give them ourselves.
Yeah.
So taking advantage of that is going to be the way of the future. I just wanted to say, Dave, and this may be too simple, but we have 2D and 3 forwards. You line up for a face-off. After that, it's wherever the puck is. You're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when you're looking at some of the offensive players that, like Hughes and others that get involved in the offense, they're part of the rush, they're part of the first pass on the breakout, and there's an interchange of positions. And I think players are getting more comfortable, and hockey's becoming more 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with all the new complex tactics going on. And I think players can digest that, process that, make decisions. Quite simply, it's a matter of vision and movement and trusting and respecting your teammates. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know whether it's too revolutionary in thinking, but I don't think the Russians back in our day interchanged positions, but they sure did use each other and move the puck and played at a higher speed than we ever did. And we evolved with a defensive focus to our coaching. I know I did, and to this day, I'm still caught up in that thought process of teaching defense in order to get the puck and attack. So, any other thoughts out there? Laura, you've listened a lot. Tom sitting back, and I wrote down a number of questions, Dave, before you got on. The difference between hockey today and hockey back in the day.
Yeah.
And now you can even throw the KHL, European hockey, into that mix.
Mm-hmm.
What are the differences? What have we got to learn from the differences? Are there things we still need to do? Are there things we have to learn to do better because the game is changing?
Well, we're in a game now of where we just talked about it before. Every player now has got so many consultants giving him information beyond his parents that the game is getting more complicated for the individual. Back in the day, there was more informal learning. Like when we played, here we go, folks. When we played shinny, cross ice on the outdoor rink in our shoes, not our skates, with sticks we called toothpicks because the blades were all broken blades and very thin. You learned that because of that thin blade, you had to handle a tennis ball very quickly. You had to learn to take a slash, give a slash, no referees, protect the puck. You learned how to use your hands, very, very well. So the informal part of learning the game, I think we do now. There's so much formalized learning. We have hockey academies. There's still a few hockey schools, but more and more now the academies have moved into all that. We have summer tournaments. We have all these things that are complications and all formalized, organized learning for the young guys and gals. I think we have to still give kids. I'll tell you a story, okay? With the national team, we started our practices always 2-puck, 11 versus 11, because they got to play the game for 7 or 8 minutes. They played the game. God, they were so happy. And we always played 2 pucks because you have to play 1 puck, but you got to be aware where the other puck is. So they learned a few things about awareness, positioning, but we weren't talking a lot about that. But they played for 7 or 8 minutes, and the talk was fantastic. The guys got into the practice. We didn't do stretching because they stretched in the dressing room. We played the game for 6 or 7 or 8 minutes. At some point during the practice, we'd always do something cross ice, small area, or we might do a 3-on-3 full ice or half ice. Again, because they should play the game. So you've got to combine some formal learning with some informal learning, if you can, because that's where the fun comes from. And I think they still develop a lot of important things playing informally, where you, like I say, 2-puck, 11 versus 11. It was great. Guys loved it. And their skills, it was crowded, it was traffic. They weren't quite sure if that guy was with me or against me in terms of colors. So it was really good stuff. And I think you have to do that. I think we rely so much now on instruction and that model that I don't know sometimes if we haven't gone overboard with that, if we're not burning kids out so much that, you only love the game when you organize your own game, it's because you love the game. And so don't be afraid to let the guys play. Every practice, they got to play some, and they got to have some fun, and not too much feedback from the coach. Just shut up, enjoy it, and laugh, and have some fun. If you can do that, you create an environment that's good. And then when you do talk, they will listen. They're ready to listen to you. So it just takes some intelligence. That's all it does. And unfortunately, we got a very complicated, sophisticated game now, and I'll go back to another story for you. Sorry about this. When I did my book, Loose Pucks and Ice Pegs, I talked to a lot of guys that played in the minor professional ranks, not the NHL. And I said to them, tell me about coaching in those days. And the guy said, well, we were taught some things. Yeah, for sure. Like on the road, 1 man in, at home, 2 men in, things are very simple, but made sense, made a lot of sense. You had a home style, you had a road style, okay? And I said, did coaches give you much feedback? No, not very much. They'd get mad at you once in a while. The place they learned the most was from their teammates, because your line mate, if say it's in the NHL and you're playing with a guy and you make a mistake, he's worried because he may get sent down too. You may get sent down, but in those days there was no guaranteed contracts. You could get sent down. So because there was a minor professional league, your teammates were coaches because how you played affected them and their survival in the game. So the game has changed now. It's all, there's more money, there's long-term contracts. You have to get, as I said earlier, you got to get good people as much as you can. And even that's going to be a challenge because there's a lot of factors involved in the game now that we can't control as coaches. We have to react to it, and we have to be able to be smart enough to find a way to compensate and make it work.